The Rest Stop with Brad Restituto.
Comes up in the pocket. Fires to the right side. Caught by Diggs. Stay up. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Are you kidding me? It's the Minneapolis Miracle.
I got 3 words for you. You like that?
Good evening, live from Las Vegas, the Rest Stop on Tuesday, December 29th, 2020. My name is Brad Restituto, Spencer the Wiz. Alongside with me, we've got a good sports show for you today here on the Rest Stop. Thanks for joining us. Just going to go heavy sports, guys, because NFL, so many great storylines to talk about, and we're coming up on playoff time. The NFL has found a way to get through the regular season. They've got 1 week left, and then the playoffs are in full effect. With the new playoff structure. So we're going to get heavy into the great storylines completing this NFL season as we're coming into week 17. And also we're going to end the show with some great NBA talk. NBA is underway, first week in action. We've already got 3-4 games under the belt, some games on the schedule tonight. If you love basketball, you definitely want to stick around for that conversation as it's a good one. And if you miss any part of the show, make sure you listen to the podcast version of the Rest Stop, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Audio Boom. Search Landry Football Conference Call. The Rest Stop will be underneath there. And guys, of course, we're live every Tuesday and Thursday, 9 and 10 o'clock Pacific time. And we're going to go live on New Year's Eve on Thursday, executive decision between Spencer the Wiz and myself. So make sure you tune in to our New Year's Eve show on Thursday. And if you're on the East Coast, I know it's going to be right into your new year. But if you're on the internet, because of social distancing and everything, make sure you tune in, download the Twitch app, check us out, Landry Football, the Rest Stop. We'll be doing live on New Year's Eve here in Las Vegas, and we'll have a great show for you, kind of year in a review, and we'll talk about what's in store for the Rest Stop in 2021 with myself and Spencer the Wiz, and alongside sports, seeing what's going on in the sports landscape for the new year. And it's going to be a great one. And sports, to me, right now are thriving because NBA and NFL, two of the biggest sports, are in action. And during this global pandemic with so much uncertainty and so much unrest, to be able to have live sports, it's a great outlet. It's a great outlet for us to turn into. And the sports are great. The NBA is thriving. The NFL is getting ready for their playoff run with this new structure. Only the top seeds will get the bye in this year's 2020-2021 NFL playoffs. And so let's get into those storylines. And we'll start off with Monday Night Football's game last night and the Buffalo Bills, who really are a Hail Mary away and a game that they weren't really prepared for against the Titans with the Titans issues, and then a loss to Kansas City that they had a chance to stick with. But Buffalo could be in the conversation for that 1 seed if it weren't for a few plays here and there. They continued their hot streak last night, destroying the Patriots of New England in an AFC East matchup, 38-9. Josh Allen continues to be hot for Buffalo. He threw 4 touchdowns for the Bills. And look, everyone, the Bills are my pick. I've said it for weeks. Spencer's been with me on board with the Bills. I don't know if he thinks they're ready to make that step to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, but I'm saying that that's my pick. That's my pick right now. That's probably been my pick for a few weeks. I've really thought Kansas City is going to be tough to beat till the end. That's why I kind of reserved my strong opinion that Buffalo is absolutely going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. But Kansas City for 8 or 9 weeks now has done absolutely nothing. They've been in close games. They shouldn't be close. They had a chance to blow out Tampa Bay, and somehow Tampa Bay is within 3 points at the end. I just don't think Kansas City is dialed in with the play calling. I don't know that Kansas City is got the type of juice to just roll through the playoffs. I think if you talk about the juice, the Buffalo Bills have it right now. And the combination of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs is really something historic in a way. We're seeing them just lighting it up. And as a former Vikings fan, knowing Stephon Diggs really well, it's an interesting story because this guy was a big part of the Minneapolis Miracle, one of the biggest plays in Minnesota Vikings history. It, of course, ended in a loss the following week, but Stephon Diggs had a place in the rafters in Minnesota, and he wanted out. And he's statistically put up his best year ever in a Buffalo Bills uniform. Buffalo's had their best year in probably 4 or 5 decades. Josh Allen, if you're just grading him on his season this year, Buffalo Bills fans, sports fans are saying this guy is it. He is the franchise. There's a lot of talking heads here locally that are not on the Josh Allen train. They say his first couple years have been dreadful. If you want to say his rookie year left a little bit to be desired, okay, I'll give you that. But I thought Josh Allen showed a lot of flash last year. I thought even though statistically and the eye test some people did not like his performance in the playoff loss to Houston last year, I like a lot of what I saw, and it definitely was not on him. The reason that they lost that game to the Houston Texans in the wild card round where they were leading that game for the most part. But Josh Allen this year has taken that next step. Everything's fallen into place. The receiving core is the best he's ever had. The offensive line is upgraded. Brian Dable has found a rhythm in the offensive play calling. Head coach Sean McDermott has shown he's the real deal. And the Buffalo Bills not only have the confidence, they're clicking. The chemistry seems to be there. And I really love what they're capable of doing. And I think they can go into Kansas City and beat them. Bravo, stop with the Steelers. They're so lucky to even have won. They're still going to be gone week 1. So send your money over, and we'll put it on the Steelers to lose, and we'll parlay that with Buffalo all the way around. But look, Buffalo, blowout win. That's their second blowout win in a row. I think they've won 4 straight. And they're my pick in the AFC to go all the way. And Kansas City is going to be knocked off early. I have a hard time thinking anything otherwise. The injury to Clyde Edwards-Helaire is clearly significant. Whatever game plan Atlanta had defensively with Raheem Morris, it was a good one because they had Mahomes out of rhythm. He was inconsistent. They were getting pressure on him. And this is Atlanta. Atlanta stinks, okay? Atlanta's gotten blown out and has been awful for the most part of the year. They've got 4 wins. I think they started out 0-4, 0-5 before I think they beat the Vikings for their first win. We know the Vikings are terrible. I told you when they had 1 win, they should have kept losing. They decided to have people believe and then go on and lose 4 or 5 in a row, putting up the worst defensive performance in team history just about on Christmas Day. But we'll get into that in a minute. But the Bills. Spence, jump in with me here, man. I know you're not ready to say the Bills are going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, but you've got to have a lot more confidence that possibility is real, and especially the way their defense have played. I know New England's no juggernaut, but to hold any NFL team under 10 points is something to be said. Their defense has played well the last 4 weeks. They're really playing their best football of the year, and you've got to start playing your best football of the year at this time of year. So Buffalo rolling off 4 in a row. I don't know how much they're going to play their starters in the season finale against Miami, but man, they're riding as high as ever, and we've talked about them for weeks. I think we both have been high on them. There's no time to be higher on them than right now.
Yeah, no, you got a great point. They've, especially after the bye week, they've hit a new stride, which is really good to see if you're a Buffalo fan. You know, I mean, you got to hope that they just took the lessons from the Houston Texans game and they're going to carry that into this year's playoffs, because if they have another disappointing one where they get bounced in the first round, I don't know what that's going to do to them mentally, because I think they feel like they can win the Super Bowl or at least go there, but that's just easier said than done. I mean, Josh Allen is just, I mean, if he had played like this consistently throughout the season, we'd be talking about him potentially being the MVP instead of Aaron Rodgers.
We had that talk, Spence, for a while.
Yeah.
I think he'll land in the top 3 of the voting. I mean, I take it for what it's worth, but it's
So everything they're doing is right on paper. It's just when it's single elimination games, for some reason, football just feels a little different. And we'll see if they can, rise up to the challenge. But statistically, they can. On the team makeup, they can.
I hate to say it, but man, it looks like Stephon Diggs is the X factor. The guy had 3 touchdowns again. He's a great football player, man. You got to give it to him. The guy is such a precise route runner. He catches. He's got one of the highest catch percentages in traffic out of anybody in the NFL. I don't have that stat in front of me, but I know it's available analytically as far as contested catches. He's right up there in the top 3. The guy's got great hands. He's a great route runner. And when he's happy and has confidence, I mean, look what's going on there. They've got a really nice receiving core with with Diggs, Dawson Knox at tight end. They got Gabriel, and they got Cole Beasley, man. As long as that offensive line is protecting, and Josh Allen as the dual threat, what he can do with his legs, it just makes that dynamic so dangerous. I mean, I didn't like what they did in the first half against the Steelers, but they got it together in the second half. And since then, since that first half of the Steelers, they've just gone up and down the field. I know, against the Denver Broncos, they destroyed, but New England as well on the road, 38 points. It is what it is. The numbers don't lie. The final score doesn't lie. And if you want to talk about that, their biggest rival, Kansas City, which is, in my opinion, is going to be their biggest rival in the playoffs. Kansas City is leaving a lot to be desired. And the only reason that they're going to be the favorite and a lot of people aren't ready to jump off that train is because they saw what Patrick Mahomes did in the Super Bowl season last year. The conversation may be different if any of those games just go a little different. If the Houston Texans keep their first half lead, the Tennessee Titans, who also had a first half lead, if the San Francisco 49ers complete that touchdown pass, we're not talking about the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in the same way. So they're definitely showing their vulnerability. Now we're critiquing a one-loss team. Remember that. They still only have one loss. But they certainly have shown me enough where they're not going to be able to just skip by against these playoff teams. Like, I know Tennessee isn't the greatest right now after their disappointing performance against Green Bay, but I think they'll be ready when the playoffs come to hit their stride. I think Buffalo, we know what they can do. Any of the wild card teams, no, Cleveland's not going to knock off Kansas City. Miami right now, they're not healthy enough. They're not going to knock off Kansas City. The Ravens, I think the Ravens, if they're healthy, they've got an opportunity. We'll see. We'll see how it shapes up. But Kansas City, come playoff time, it doesn't matter who it is. They can't afford to just feel like they're going to be in a close game like they were against Atlanta. That game was at Arrowhead, and the Falcons should have won the game, or at least should have took it to overtime. So it's going to be fun to watch, and we'll talk more about that leading in to the end of Week 16 and coming into Week 16. Spence, let's talk a little bit briefly about the games from Christmas, because we were here last on Christmas Eve, the Christmas games and then the Saturday games. We'll briefly start with the Vikings and the Saints. The Vikings, the worst defensive performance ever. So a lot of people may say Alvin Kamara, record-setting 6 touchdowns, maybe 7. The Saints now have propelled themselves into the conversation as the best team in the NFC. Don't be fooled so quickly with that, okay? I've been trying to tell you guys. I'm not saying it just because I'm a disgruntled fan. This defense stinks. That's why I was so pissed off, and I disowned the Vikings after they beat Green Bay because they had no business beating Green Bay. Look what Green Bay's done. So have they lost the game since then? 1 to Tampa Bay? I mean, the Vikings defense is awful. They cannot get to the passer. And when you can't sack the quarterback, how do you win? How can you win? They've got their linebackers hurt now. And look, the Saints took it to them. And there's a little bit of a rivalry there, Spence, with the Minneapolis Miracle. The next 2 years later, Kirk Cousins gets his first playoff win in New Orleans. And especially the Miracle as Sean Payton was doing the skull chant, and then the Vikings get that miracle touchdown. So even though Mike Zimmer and Sean Payton coach together and they're friends, there's bad blood between these two teams. And you notice that with kind of 2 minutes left, the game was in hand. The Saints threw the ball, and they went up by 19 as opposed to just kind of running the game out for the most part. So the Saints whipped the Vikings' ass pretty easily. Mike Zimmer went out and said this is the worst defense he's ever had. They're awful. He's right. Is it throwing his players under the bus? Is it motivating them for next year? I don't know. Of course, a lot of the Vikings pundits on Twitter calling for Zimmer's head. I don't think that's the answer. Get a lot of guys out on defense, and you've got to get better defensively. If it's better coaching, if it's better preparation, I don't know. But you got to have these young guys ready to play. Now, from New Orleans' standpoint, Alvin Kamara was great. The defense was not that great. I mean, the Vikings scored 30-plus points, and it was fairly close for the most part. But your guy, Spence, you've called him Noodle Arm Breeze. He probably should have had 3 or 4 interceptions. The Vikings were only able to hold on to 2. Without having Michael Thomas, we're not sure his playoff status. They're going to need Michael Thomas in the lineup if they want to go deep in the playoffs. And they don't have him. So I'm just telling everyone out there, don't be so sold on the Saints yet as your playoff favorite. It was a nice win. They still have an opportunity for that 1 overall seed. They need the Packers to lose to the Bears, but it looks like the Packers should wrap up the number 1 overall seed. If that's the case, New Orleans got to play in that wild card weekend at home, and I don't care who they play. It more than likely will be the Arizona Cardinals. That's no gimme. Kyler Murray can put up points. Not sold on the defense. They should win the game, but it's no guarantee.
No, it's not. And yeah, they have the picturesque win with 6 touchdowns from Alvin Kamara. They're unstoppable on offense and all that kind of stuff. We saw last year in the playoffs just how vulnerable Drew Brees can be. You're not going to get 6 touchdowns out of Alvin Kamara every single playoff game. That's for sure. So at some point, they're going to have to depend on Drew Brees to be good, to be the former Super Bowl Drew Brees self. And I'm sorry, I don't believe in that at all. They can get bounced in the first round by literally anybody, as far as I'm concerned. And especially he is coming just off that injury. And now we're talking about late in the season where his arm's getting a little tired. It has disaster written all over it. They're going to depend a lot on their defense. And if their defense just has a bad game, it's going to be bad for them.
Spence, from more of the Saturday action, we don't have to talk too much about this one because it wasn't a game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers annihilated the Detroit Lions. And Tampa Bay, they want to try to hit their stride going into the playoffs. They're going to be a wild card team. They're going to have to go on the road. I don't know what their first round matchup is going to look like until next week. But Tampa Bay is going to – I told you, Spence, that regardless of how they look, when playoff time hits, Tom Brady's going to be something to deal with, and that's going to be the case. And I'm really excited to see what kind of damage Tampa Bay can do. But they destroyed the Lions on Saturday, and then it wrapped up with the Dolphins and your Raiders, Spence, and just wow. A lot of people had a lot of opinions on how that game ended. I agree with everything that John Gruden did. I think take as much time off the clock as possible. They executed the field goal, but then with 19 seconds left, I don't know what happened. So Spence, you take it from there.
Yeah, I got a little bit to talk about here, obviously. First we can talk about the decision. Was the decision to go for the field goal the correct one? Maybe. At the same time, it's much easier to get a field goal than it is a touchdown. And if you're talking about, I don't know, the difference between 40 seconds, even with an additional 40 seconds, you got to go, not only you have to go just like past half field, because anything can happen on a Hail Mary pass, like, some sort of pass interference. So let's say they had gone over that touchdown and they still made that catch. You're talking about 30 seconds left. They have no timeouts to then go an additional 40 yards for the touchdown. So in that reason, I say no. Was it a disappointing loss? I guess maybe a little bit, but at the same time, when you have a defense that's as bad as the Raiders, your chances of winning any given football game, no matter how much time's left on the clock, it's just not going to work out for you. You have no Pro Bowl talent on your team, so until they figure that out, I'm not going to be talking about them doing anything. It's got to start with Mike Mayock being fired. He's been one of the worst GMs in Raiders history, at least in my lifetime. Every single decision this guy's made seems to be the wrong one, and it just shows up on the field. Damon Arnett got burned every single play. Nope, Cleveland Farrell has one good game of season, and suddenly he's, the hero of the team. He's terrible. Jonathan Hankins, a bad pick. Malik Collins, a bad free agency pick. Corey Littleton, on paper, was a good pick, but from an analytical side, from a sports side, we're all going to say it was a good pickup because he was good last year. But that he's just obviously not a scheme fit for whatever defense the Raiders are running. So that's not our job as analysts. So that's his job to say whether or not this guy would be good on the actual team. The firing of Paul Gunther, again, a horrible decision, especially when you're on the fringe of a playoffs. You're just going to throw in Rod Marinelli or Martinelli. His name could be Tortellini for all I care. He's one of the worst defensive coaches in the leagues. So, again, the Raiders aren't going to make the playoffs next year. They're not going to make the playoffs the years after that. And hopefully they can make the playoffs in that third year. But I don't believe it until Mike Mayock gets fired.
Spence, that being said, with the relationship Mayock and Gruden have, do you think that what's the percentage chance that Mayock gets fired in the next 2 years?
It's 0, because when John Gruden retires, Mike Mayock's going to go with him. And that just means hopefully that, John Gruden retires in the next 2 seasons and just gives up.
Spence, I know I can't change your mind, but I just want to ask you to hold out hope on Mayock, give him a couple more years. Spence, it's like,
what is the one good thing he's done for the team? One good thing that he's done.
Well, I told you, Darren Waller.
Max Crosby. No, John Gruden watched him on on a practice squad for the Ravens practice squad. It was John Gruden who wanted to sign him.
All right, Spence. So I don't have any evidence apparently to back it up, but I just want you to wait 2 more years. I think.
And that's fine. I like high draft picks. It'll make it exciting, even though they'll mess up the draft picks too.
From Miami's perspective, what do you think about the fact that Brian Flores is fearless? He does not care about ego. If you've got to make a pitching change in the game, he has no hesitation going to Fitzpatrick to give them the spark they need. I love it. I think it got them the possibility to win the game. I think it gives them a fighting chance to win a playoff game or even get in the playoffs, which is no guarantee with the way that the AFC playoff picture is set up. Talk about the Dolphins and Brian Flores. Even though they should have lost that game, if you're a Dolphins fan, you've got to be kind of happy, not kind of happy, very happy that this team went from almost a potential first overall pick, the worst team in the league, to now fighting for a playoff spot.
No, honestly, I think you should be willing to give criticism to Flores too, because every single week Tua just isn't playing well. I don't know. I'm not here to say he's a bust or anything like that. He's just not NFL ready right now. And that could be because he had to spend a lot of time out of football because of the injury. But why do they keep starting him if they should be trying to make a playoff push at this point? Now, I don't know if they have Super Bowl aspirations, but if you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. So I'm sick of watching Tua come in and not play well, and then they have to just chuck in Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to the team. These guys want to win football games. They don't want to develop because, yes, they're going to have a very high draft pick next year because of the Houston Texans, and they're also going to have their own first-round pick. But it's time for them to take things seriously, sit to it for the rest of the year, and hopefully in the offseason he improves. That's all they can do. But overall, the team is just – it's kind of like one of those magical runs, something you'd never expect. But every season, anything can happen. Like the Raiders' legendary season where they went to the playoffs and Derek Carr unfortunately got that bad injury. That's bound to happen any given year, and it just happens to be the Dolphins. And what are they going to do next season? Hopefully Brian Flores doesn't lose the room like former Raiders coach. I can't think of his name. Jack, I think, off the top of my head. I think he's on the Jaguars defensive coordinator now.
Jackson?
Yeah. No, not it. Gosh, he's the coach who took the Raiders. Jack Del Rio. Excuse me. Just call myself a Raiders fan. But hopefully he doesn't lose the locker room over the season for whatever reason. But I don't think they will. And plus, they have tons of assets coming up on top to already improve upon what they have. They got to get a better offensive line. They got to probably get some receivers. But if they do that, there's no reason they can't continue to be successful year in and year out.
Spence, let's hit the primetime game from Sunday night. The Tennessee Titans, 2 playoff teams. Tennessee travel to Lambeau Field and snowy Lambeau Field to take on the Packers. And, man, I know we haven't really talked a lot of Packers or Aaron Rodgers this year because it's kind of expected how good he is. I don't have his stats in front of me. Let's see if we can pull them up. But I believe there's somewhere around the lines of 40-something touchdown passes, 4 interceptions. Aaron Rodgers, just unbelievable again, and pretty much destroying Tennessee. And it looks like the Packers are going to be the first overall seed in the NFC. He's the clear favorite for MVP at this point. And 44 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 4,000 yards. Unreal. First in QBR, tied for third in least interceptions. First in touchdown passes at 44. Man, Spence, Aaron Rodgers. But are we surprised? Aaron Rodgers has been great his whole career. He's taken talent, okay talent, and made them superstars. Devontae Adams should be in the conversation now for top 2, top 3 receiver in the NFL. We know what the Packers are capable of. They just haven't made it to the Super Bowl since their Super Bowl victory. Is this the year? I mean, I think it could be. Aaron Rodgers is just that talented. It looks like A.J. Dillon had a coming out party, the rookie running back from Boston College. The defense seemed to be playing better with confidence. The Packers, and I know we go back and forth on who's the favorite in the NFC, and we really don't talk about Green Bay. Is it just because Aaron Rodgers has just always been that good? When you talk about 44 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, that's sick, Spence. That is unbelievable numbers. And it's just not stats with Rodgers. You see it on the field. When the guy's got time to throw, he is just a general. He's just surgical with his precision, with his playmaking, with getting them in the right plays. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I've always thought he was in the conversation for top 3, top 4, top 5 quarterbacks ever. I definitely think he's top 2, top 3 as far as just straight arm talent and his accuracy and his spin on the ball and what he can do as a thrower. I've said that for many years, but I haven't talked about him a lot in the last 2 years, and partially it's just because he's just that damn good. And there's not a lot to say. Green Bay is consistently on top of that division. They're consistently in the playoff race, but they don't have the complete package to get themselves to the Super Bowl. They play close games for the most part, it seems like. Last year, I mean, they just could not stop the run, but they've got that ability. And with Devontae Adams, and if they can stay healthy, they can run the ball. Green Bay could be sitting there in the NFC title game against the Buccaneers in a rematch.
Yeah, they just didn't play very well, I think, in the beginning of the season. So it's good to see that they've gaining momentum at the exact right time. And they had a very, well-defined win against Tennessee, one where a lot of people, including Brad and myself, thought Tennessee would be able to run the ball, because we saw that Jaguars game with, I think, Jake Luton was the quarterback at the time. If I'm not mistaken, they ended up winning that game, but still, they were able to run the ball all over them. So I think a lot of us are trying to translate that over into the late game of the season, and it's just not happening. Aaron Rodgers continues to dominate. I wish they would have drafted Brandon Ayuk that the 49ers ended up getting, because that would just add a whole new layer. We saw how talented he could be, although I believe he had a pretty bad injury, but you can't assume he would also have that same injury when it came to the Packers. But still, no. Look, the NFC is wide open. They're going to be favored to win every game, and there's no reason why they can't. It's just, I don't know. I've just seen a few really awkward performances out of them that just make me question it. That's all.
I agree with that. I think it's going to be fun to watch. I think whoever Tampa Bay matches up against is going to be a good game, and we're going to be able to break down those matchups when the seeding comes out, because I think some teams match up better than others. I think that the Saints do match up well against Tampa Bay if they end up facing them. I think Seattle, Green Bay is always a good matchup. They seem to meet in the playoffs quite frequently. Green Bay beat them last year, but it was close. And Russell Wilson will keep it close in the playoffs. And it's just a matter of, does Seattle have enough defensively to be better than what they were earlier in the year? And if that's the case, it can be Seattle. I mean, we go back and forth. Who's the favorite? Any of these teams have an opportunity to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, except, of course, the NFC East winner, which I don't think will happen. But Aaron Rodgers, it's just he's that good that we just overlook him. But he's going to be the MVP this year, Spence. And we really haven't. We've talked about Allen. We've talked about Mahomes. We talked about Russell Wilson. We really don't talk about Aaron Rodgers, but he's going to be the guy, and he's going to give the Packers the first overall seed in the NFC. Spence, let's continue with the NFL talk. Let's go to our picks, and we'll break down the games. Our picks, they weren't very good this week, and we apologize for that. It was rough, and we'll talk about the playoff implications of the teams that would go over. The one Saturday game we missed was exclusive on Amazon Prime. The Cardinals lost as 5-point favorites to the San Francisco 49ers, led by CJ Beathard. Look, the winner of the Cardinals-Rams is going to be in the playoffs, and they play week 17. So whoever wins that matchup will have a playoff berth. And the Chicago Bears, if they win, they're in. But if the Cardinals lose to the Rams, the Bears are still in. So it's going to be fun to watch. Can Captain Mitch, MVP Mitch, I'm leading his fan club just as I've led other guys' fan clubs this year in basketball and football.
Your boy Bol Bol doing nothing this season.
Yeah, Bol Bol, he will come around. But Mitch, I've got right up at least the last three weeks. The Bears are riding high, and they got a chance to be in the playoffs. The Cardinals, they can't afford to lose that game. They would have really positioned themselves well to get that wild card berth if they beat a quarterbackless, pretty much Niners team. CJ Beathard has played and started games for San Francisco. They should win that game, and they did not. So the Cardinals, we've talked about their inconsistency. If they get in the playoffs, they could win a game, but they're just so inconsistent along with quite a few other teams. We talked about these other games, Dolphins, Raiders, Bucks, Lions. So let's go to the next round, Spence. The Cleveland Browns late in the week lost all their receivers, and they lost to the Jets. Okay, so I've been telling people slow your roll with the Browns. Okay, they covered last week. Yes. Do we want to talk about Baker Mayfield? I don't care that you've lost all your receivers. Okay, I'm so tired of this Kevin Stefanski Coach of the Year. You could throw that out the window, okay, because you lost to a one-win Jets team, and now you're on the verge. If you lose in Week 17 and other things fall into place, you don't even make the playoffs. Okay, so the Browns might not even make the playoffs. Spence, you can shake your head, but that's reality. There's no guarantee that the Browns are in the playoffs. They've got to go out and win against.
They play against Rudolph, man, one of the worst backup quarterbacks I can think of.
He stinks, but I'm not convinced the Browns are just going to walk in and win that. They lost to the Jets. Okay, I don't care if you have no receivers. We talk about them running the football. Why'd they run the ball only 15 times, Kevin Stefanski? With no receivers. They should have ran the ball 45 times. It's a joke, man. The Browns are a joke. They're not going to go anywhere if they do make the playoffs. And then we can revisit how great Kevin Stefanski is next year because they're going to be bounced from the playoffs if they make it after one game. Yeah, Spence, come on. Are you going to defend the Browns losing to the Jets? I don't care who was lining up a receiver. I don't care if Sheila Bravo was playing receiver.
What were their expectations coming into the season? To make the playoffs?
Yeah, to win.
It looks like they're going to do that. So, I mean, no one said they were going to win playoff games this year, but this is a team that has not eclipsed 10 wins. Who knows? When was the last time the Browns won 10 football games in
a long time?
So he did give them a big step forward. So it's a lot to ask for a new head coach. John Gruden's had 3 years, and the Raiders haven't even had a positive record. So for him to come in year one and do this, it's kind of impressive. Come on, I think you're being a little too harsh.
I don't know, Spence. I mean, I thought everyone was talking about the Browns being the darlings last year, that they had the team last year to make that next step. Well, they didn't. But so now a coach takes over that same roster, makes a couple adjustments, and it looks like they're going to back into the playoffs. Okay, fine. I'll give him a little credit. But they're talking coach of the year. Come on, that's too much, man. He's not coach of the year by any stretch of the imagination, especially after losing to the Jets. Spence, you were on the right side of this next one. The Bengals, they kept it close. They won the game. What do I mean keep it close? And the Texans, like you've talked about most of the season, probably the worst franchise in the league. I don't know how they lose this game to the Bengals, but they did as 8-point favorites. So if you had a Bengals-Jets parlay moneyline ticket 2 weeks in a row, you are riding high. But I don't know how many people did that 2 weeks in a row, Spence.
If the Raiders didn't have Mike Mayock as their GM, J.J. Watt would be on the Raiders by the beginning of the offseason. He wants out, man. I don't know if you saw that speech he gave after the game. It's pretty rough, and he was calling out a lot of guys in the locker room. Never gave out any names. But, I mean, those guys probably knew what he was talking about. He's sick into his stomach to see what's happened to the Texans. He's going to get traded. I just wish it was to the Raiders.
Spence, the Indianapolis Colts blow a nice first-half lead, and all of a sudden the Steelers are back. They got the win. The Steelers are back. Is Bravo going to be hosting the show for a week straight on the Manhattan skyscraper with Spencer the Wiz? After that second-half performance, is Big Ben and the Steelers ready to make a playoff run, Spence?
No, not just yet. I mean, that's a good win for them, for sure. I mean, that's cemented them as probably not being bounced in the first round like you want them to be. Depends on their matchup. You know, if they play the Browns, I guess, it's probably not going to be – they're probably going to go right to the second round. Can they beat this? Can they beat the Chiefs? I think they might be able to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs have probably the worst defense in the playoffs going into it. Other than, I don't know, the Buccaneers, who have looked pretty bad in certain spots. But if you go on the list, it's a little tight when it comes to who gets that crown. Can they beat the Titans twice? Probably not. So a lot of it's going to depend on how far they go, is like who they play, because certain teams match up well against them, certain teams don't. I think the Colts could beat them if they face them in the playoffs too. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. It's such a far swing on the pendulum. The Colts look like they're riding the hottest, team in the playoffs, and then it goes back down to earth. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on this game. It wasn't expected for me, especially after the way the game started.
Well, you talk about that pendulum, and that's why the AFC is so weird to me, because I love the Bills. My second selection will be the Ravens, and then I think the rest are a crapshoot, including the Chiefs. The Chiefs, I mean, we saw the Titans shit the bed on Sunday night. The Colts blow this game. I don't like the Steelers, don't like the Browns. The Dolphins, I don't think, are healthy enough or have enough weapons to make a run. So I like two teams in the AFC, and I think the rest are trash. And I hate to say that about the defending Super Bowl champions, but they've been so bad for 9 weeks, even though they win. That's not going to get it done in the playoff time. I could be wrong. Maybe I'll eat my words. Kansas City will be in the driver's seat of the Super Bowl. But, God, they've been bad for 9 weeks in winning. They win ugly, and you could say there's no such thing as a bad win, but I'm telling you there is, especially when you're barely beating teams that are at the bottom rung in the NFL on your home field. Talk about hot teams, Spence. The Mitch-led Chicago Bears, they're hot right now, man. Come on, Spence, they're hot.
They played the Jaguars. The Jaguars' only objective for the season was to get Trevor Lawrence. They got lucky in that Week 1 victory, and they were crying about it, and now they fixed themselves. I'm not saying it's not impressive that the Bears are rolling off a few victories. Who do they play in the last week? Do you know? Oh, they play the Packers. Yes. Come on. If they beat the Packers, I will eat crow. I just don't see that happening. I think they're going to.
If they beat the Packers, will you eat crow and will you say MVP Mitch wins a playoff game?
What are we talking about here? The Bears are going to walk into the playoffs, start winning games.
I'd like to see it. I'm on the Mitch fan club. Nice win for the Bears. We'll see if they can finish up the season strong. They've got confidence right now. And Mitch Trubisky trying to find his way into another year. They didn't pick up his rookie option. He's going to be a free agent. Did the Bears find a way to bring him back? Where does Mitch Trubisky go? I believe he's 29-20 in his career. He's got a better record than Deshaun Watson. Trubisky, under the radar, here he comes. The believer's been calling it. Spence, let's go to the next round of games here as the Bears cover easily the Falcons. We talked about how bad the Chiefs aren't covering games, so we were on the right side here. If it weren't for a 39-yard missed field goal, that game would have went to overtime. The next matchup we should not have pushed on, but the Broncos find another way to stay in a game that they shouldn't. I just hate the freaking Broncos as much as anybody. They're so disgusting to me. So enough about them. The Chargers, okay, they get a win. Herbert, everybody's rookie of the year, but they still got, 4 wins? So not impressive to me. The Washington football team, and let's get into this news, Spence. Dwayne Haskins released. He's gone. The Bears, or not the Bears, the Washington football team let him go. Ron Rivera was on Sirius XM NFL radio today, and he said the time was now. He talked to owner Dan Snyder about the move. He got the support of the owner and said it was time. Haskins made a statement saying he didn't handle things like he should. Ron Rivera's not playing, man. You're either on board with what he's got going on or you're going to be a casualty. Dwayne Haskins is a casualty. Is he going to be out of the league, Spence? What does he got to do? Someone's got to pick him up, right? Maybe not this year with 1 game left, but next year?
Who would want somebody like that on their football team?
Is he done? So he's done already, you think?
Jamarcus Russell didn't get picked up by the next team. Now, I know I made this, obviously, graphic myself, and the only reason I brought it up is because my friend told me that. And I have to disagree that he's the next, Jamarcus Russell, because he was the touted first overall pick. He was supposed to be everything. But in the same sense, the Washington football team did, trade up to get him. He said this was a guy who said they all made a mistake. Like, that's kind of how he labeled himself. And the only reason, I think the only comparison you can make to him and Jamarcus Russell that's pretty much valid. I have not a famous story. It's actually a pretty under the radar story, but my dad told it to me when the Raiders drafted Jamarcus Russell. And at the time I told my dad, nah, it means nothing. It's just a silly story. So when Jamarcus Russell was drafted by the Raiders, they gave him a blank CD, nothing on it. And what they told him when they gave it to him was, check out this game tape. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about these plays. So he went home. Of course, he did not listen to it, did not watch it, didn't even know it was blank. So when he came back the next day and they asked him, what'd you think about it? Instead of saying, oh, there's nothing on there, he lied and said he liked everything that he saw. So, and my dad told me, I was like, he's just a kid, probably a little nervous, stuff like that. And then we see it on the field. Now, when you look at Dwayne Haskins, he's going out, breaking COVID-19 protocols early in the season, going out to strip clubs. Again, another violation of the protocols. And it's just a couple of guys who are not taking football seriously, and they don't realize that they took it for granted until they're like 32 years old, living off in a secluded little area of like Wisconsin, living off the rest of their lives from their rookie checks, and regretting all the decisions they made. And that's just kind of how I feel about it. And I don't see any reason why any team would want something like this. The guy's averaging like 2 interceptions a game too. It's not like he showed something. Jamarcus Russell even had a few games where you're like, wow, I could see if he had maybe taken football a little more seriously, he could have been some sort of quarterback. I haven't gotten that from Dwayne Haskins in the slightest.
Spence, where I tend to agree with you, but I think the state of the NFL and the quarterback position, and with some of the young coaches out there, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, I think he's going to get a second chance. I think there's going to be a coach in an organization that feels like a little maturity and some coaching, and we'll see what he can do. And it's going to be interesting to see. I can't argue too much with you if he's out of the league because he's put himself in this situation. It's really tough. I mean, we talk about the quarterback position, right? Josh Allen, young guy, Tua, Joe Burrow, Haskins is a young guy. I mean, look at the Rams. After 1 year with Jeff Fisher, we're ready to throw Goff out the window. He has one good year after that, but it seems like he's digressed again. And Goff, it doesn't even look like he should be starting for anybody right now. I mean, I think the Rams are going to be better off with this backup. Goff is awful. The Rams are losing to the Jets. A lot of people thought they'd have that ping pong effect. No, Seattle beat them. So I think Haskins gets another chance. Not as a starter right away, of course, but I think he will get another chance. And but maybe that's it. Maybe only 2 chances for Dwayne Haskins. As a tough way to go, being cut with 1 game left in the season, and the Washington football team fighting for a playoff spot with not a lot of healthy quarterbacks. Taylor Heineke could get to start for the Washington football team. He's been a journeyman quarterback. He was with the Vikings practice squad for a couple years, bounced around Carolina. He was with the Panthers and Ron Rivera. He got a little playing time and then made his way with Ron Rivera and the Washington football team. And talking about quarterbacks with Washington, I know Cam Newton hasn't looked his best, but could that be a landing spot for Cam Newton after this year? Is the Washington football team, given their quarterback situation? What do you think about that idea, Spence, and the relationship with Cam and Ron Rivera?
Cam is on the corner of being done too. He might be forced into retirement earlier than he wants to. 5 touchdowns to 10 interceptions going into that football game. I don't know how he played against the Bills. I know Belichick's saying it's not his fault, but outside of the first week where they're rushing the ball all the time, and we both said immediately after that game, they're not going to be able to do that every single game. It's impossible. It worked for the first week. It quickly is falling apart. He was never a great arm talent, but it seems to be regressing. That should be the opposite from what you do. Someone who comes into the league with a bad accuracy like Josh Allen, you're supposed to be able to improve that as the years go on. And I just think Cam's too full of himself too. The whole offseason thing where he's like, kind of the same way, the same attitude that Dwayne Haskins had of, oh, everyone's against me and blah, 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 blah. I'm on the come up here. And then he was a guy who got COVID-19, presumably for COVID-19 violations, going out somewhere where he shouldn't have. Just, I don't know. I don't see any reasons why you would want him to lead your team, especially after this year.
Spence, let's go back to the graphics and roll through the rest of the NFL games because I want us to get into our NBA talk. Rams, Seahawks. We talked about the Rams just now. The Seahawks have an opportunity to get it done, and we'll see how healthy they are and if their defense can keep getting better. The next game you had up there, Spence, the Cowboys. We were on the right side. It looked shaky early as the Cowboys fell down 11 points, but they got on a nice run. They got in some rhythm defensively and offensively, and they had a really great second half, and they ended up winning that game easily, although it was probably a little bit closer than the final score. But Dallas got the job done, and they're looking to try to find their way to squeeze into the playoffs next week as they take on the New York Giants. We talked about Titans-Packers in detail. The Titans are going to have to figure it out quick. They were not good in those inclement weather conditions of Lambeau Field, but they're going to have to start playing good football as the playoffs are 2 weeks away. And the Bills, we talked about the Bills. The Patriots are going to have to look to next year. Bill Belichick, the hoodie, through the phone on the sidelines, and it's the Patriots dynasty clearly is over, but we'll see how Belichick and company can rebound from this 2021 season. So that's the pick segment that we reviewed. Brad, the Believer, Spencer the Wiz, week 16, and of course on Thursday we'll get into the final week of the NFL season, and we'll try to update you on teams that are playing, and we'll talk about the AFC and NFC playoff picture then also. But we're going to get into the NBA as we finish up the show tonight. Good slate of games tonight, Spencer the Wiz. Record-setting performance by the Milwaukee Bucks as they have the most threes in NBA history is what I'm seeing here. And they destroy the Miami Heat 144-97. The Bucks made a record 29 threes in their destruction of the Miami Heat. Little revenge from the playoffs last year. They went 29-51 from three after going 7 for 38 in a upset loss to the Knicks. So head coach Mike Budenholzer said some nights they go in, some nights they not, and tonight was our night. I don't know if it's that simple, but the Bucks used 13 players, and 12 of them made a three-pointer. The only one not is the MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo. But a fantastic performance by Milwaukee tonight. And this is the Milwaukee team that fans and the Milwaukee brass is like, okay, this is the team that needs to get to the NBA Finals. This is the team we've been waiting for, and they came out on fire tonight.
Yeah, my boy Jordan Nwora is getting some minutes for the Milwaukee Bucks, who I wanted the Grizzlies to draft. NBA season is so crazy. That's why it's so entertaining. Every single night, you have no idea what you're going to get on the court. You can hope, you can try to look for trends, but these guys are professional basketball players, and the margins are kind of small, especially when your star player isn't having a fantastic night. It really comes down to all those other guys to see how they do. And just like another game tonight, like Andrew Wiggins comes out of nowhere, gets all this criticism for all the season. I think he goes like 3 from 5 from downtown, 9 of 18 overall, and just takes over that Pistons game. So every game is worth watching. There's always something interesting going on. There's tons of great rookies. Honestly, there aren't a lot of great rookies, but it's still fun to watch to see like who actually emerges, because every time there's a bad draft, it's usually someone in that 10 to 20 range that stands out as the best player, especially that Anthony Davis draft. There's a few guys you can really point to and be like, wow, these guys really should have been taken in that spot. But we just see a lot of, we talked about this a little bit before the show started. There's so many weird blowouts this year. The Clippers get blown out by 50. The Heat get blown out by like 50 points. And I just think it's fans. I don't know. The NBA season, as fun as it is, and I'll be watching every single night because I love it, it won't be the same until there's butts in seats.
Yes, Spence, you talk about the Warriors. They beat the Pistons, who fall to 0-4 tonight. They beat them 116-106. Andrew Wiggins was 5 of 8 from 3, 9 of 19 from the field, hit all 4 of his free throws, had 27 points, 3 blocks, 3 assists, 7 rebounds, and a steal. Nice performance by Wiggins. Kelly Oubre had 14 and finally hits a three-point shot as he was 1 of 4 from 3. And Steph Curry had 31. He was 8 of 8 from the free throw line. I think going back to last season, he's hit well over 130 straight free throws going back to last year. That's pretty impressive. I could be wrong there. I have to check his stats.
Right. Yeah, he hasn't missed.
Yeah, I'd have to double check his stats from last game, but he hasn't missed in quite some time. He was 5 of 9 from 3. So he finally gets on track and gets Golden State in the win column tonight, and they cover the spread as I think they were 4-point favorites. I got them at earlier today. The Boston Celtics, they get a little revenge as they home and home stand with the Pacers. They get the 116-111 victory. Jason Tatum led the way, 27 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists for Jason Tatum. The Raptors, they fall to 0-3. The Sixers get the win, and they get the cover. I believe they were 5-point favorites. They won 100-93. Joel Embiid, really nice statistically tonight. 29 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists. Kyle Lowry had 24, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists for Toronto, but a nice victory for the Sixers. And upset fashion tonight, the Bulls get their first win, led by Zach LaVine's 23 points, 115-107. The Bulls beat the Wizards. Russell Westbrook had a triple-double, but a nice overall performance by the Bulls. Kobe White played 37 minutes, had 18 points, 16 points off the bench from Otto Porter Jr. Garrett Temple had 12 for the Bulls as well. And for the Wizards, 29 points from Brad Beal. He was 10 of 10 from the line. And Westbrook, of course, 21 points, 11 assists, and 15 rebounds. But Chicago got their first win here, Spence. And we talked about the Wizards before the show. I mean, what's up with the Wizards? I mean, they've got an 0-4 record. But, I mean, they should have beat the Bulls tonight. Don't you think? I mean, they've got talent on that roster.
Yeah, when It's not. I think they could lose to the Bulls in any given matchup. I actually like what the Bulls are doing quite a bit over there. I like their new head coach hiring and all that kind of stuff. But the Wizards should have been playing desperate. The Grizzlies played desperate, and they finally beaten a depleted Brooklyn team to get their first victory of the season. You don't want to start off too behind. Starting off 0-2 is no big deal. 0-3 is not too bad either. But once you get past that, you got to start getting victories, even against teams that you shouldn't be beating necessarily if it was in the middle of the season. I don't like what I'm seeing. I think Scott Brooks is, I like him as a coach, but I think he's lost the locker room. And when that happens, you got to make a change quickly. And he might be the first to get fired here in the first 10 games.
Yeah, C-Win chiming in with a little Sam Merrill love here. Sam Merrill, Mountain West player from Utah State, got 9 minutes tonight in the blowout. Got a 3-point shot, so he added to the mix. So Chris Wynn giving Sam Merrill some love for the Milwaukee Bucks. Sam Merrill was great at Utah State and Mountain West Player of the Year for Utah State. And a nice win for Utah. And I know C-Win is wishing his Pistons still had LiAngelo Ball, and maybe he would be shooting his way for a Pistons victory, as the Pistons seem to be garbage for C-Win in the Detroit area. It sucks because Detroit, such a storied basketball city, and the Pistons just don't look like there's any time soon that they're going to be competitive, where other teams are starting to really pull away as far as stamping themselves as playoff contenders. I think one of those teams, and I've tried to convince you, Spencer, the Wiz, the Orlando Magic. They're 4-0, first time. Come on, let me give the Magic some love. Spencer, C-Win, he's got some Orlando ties. 4-0 for the first time in franchise history. 118-107, they beat the Thunder. They're ready to move their way into the top 3 seeding of the Eastern Conference. Spencer,
now you're just talking gobble gobble nonsense. I always knew they were going to make the playoffs. They have a playoff roster, but they have no presence inside. And yes, Killian Hilly does suck. He wasn't supposed to be taken inside the top 10. If you looked at my mock drafts, it's a guy who can't use his left hand. Surprise, surprise. Can't use your left hand in the NBA. You're not going to be as good as you were overseas. But come on. Markelle Fultz, they overpaid him. They paid more money for him than the Lakers did for Kyle Kuzma. They overpay for every decent player that comes their way, when in reality, they should be able to just pick up free agents. It's Orlando. It's one of the hot spots in the United States to live in. They're going to be the 7th seed. They're going to lose in the first round, and they'll continue to keep giving more money to people who don't deserve it. That's their destiny.
All right, Spencer the Wiz, I'm going to give you some love on this next one. We're not going in order, as this was the last game tonight, but the Sacramento Kings are 3-1 on the season. They beat the Nuggets 125-115. First round pick, Spencer the Wiz, to steal the draft, Tyrese Halliburton scored 8 of his 13 points in the fourth quarter, leading a 29-15 fourth quarter for the Kings. They win by 10 over the Nuggets. De'Aaron Fox had 24 points. Tyrese Halliburton, the pride and the love of Spencer the Wiz, coming through for the Kings in their 3-1 start to start the season.
Yeah, the best draft pick or the most talented player in the draft, without a doubt. Obi Toppin can't even find his way into the starting lineup. For some reason, the Knicks passed on him. Like I said, they're going to regret it, and I feel like they already do.
The Clippers avenge their 50-point drubbing, and they get another win tonight, and they cover the spread easily. No Karl-Anthony Towns for the Timberwolves, but the Clippers get the 124-101 victory. Serge Ibaka, 16-8 for the Clippers. And the T-Wolves, I don't know, not a good start to the season. They were led by D'Angelo Russell. He had 22 points. But the Clippers, nice job by the Clippers. I don't think they had Kawhi Leonard tonight after he got the big elbow to the mouth. I'm not sure the details of that injury. Lou Williams off the bench had 20 points. Luke Kennard got in the starting lineup tonight. He had 15, nice 15. Paul George with 18, and Pat Beverly had 12. But the Clippers get the blowout win with no Kawhi Leonard in the lineup. And I think we're only missing one more game on the scoreboard tonight that we didn't go through, and that's the Suns 111-86 victory. Jay Crowder had 21 for the Suns. After being a close first quarter, the Suns go ahead and score 35 in the second, 34 in the third, and they pull away from the Pelicans, who are now 2-2. Spence, but I really want to talk about some games tomorrow before we finish up talking about some of the best players and how great the NBA is sitting right now. I don't have a line available for Grizzlies Celtics, but if I were to guess, without Jackson and without John Morant. The Celtics will probably be a home 10-plus point favorite in that one. Any thoughts there, Spence?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I knew the Grizzlies were not going to make the playoffs this year, so it's not a big deal to me. I just enjoy watching them play. I think they have a lot of great young talent. Big fan of Grayson Allen. The only player I really don't like on the Grizzlies is Dylan Brooks. He has the Mamba mentality, but if you don't have the talent, you probably shouldn't have it. But this is going to cement the Memphis Grizzlies as, a very good or probably top 5 in terms of odds to get the top pick, which is really good for them. There were no playoff aspirations. There were no, what's it called? NBA final aspirations for them. I like what doing. I like Taylor Jenkins. You just got to hope that defensively they're able to reel it in like throughout the season a little bit to show a little more promise. Again, they look like they just don't have very much going. I love Jonas Valanciunas. Kyle Anderson has to go. I'm not a big fan of him, even though he had probably his best game in a Memphis Grizzlies uniform against the Brooklyn Nets. We'll see. This is going to be a great time for development for the young players. I like Desmond Bane. I think he was a really good draft choice. Gorgie Jang, please, has to go because I want to see Killian Tilly play. Gorgie Jang in his mind thinks he's Karl Anthony Towns. But other than that, man, we'll see what they can do without Morant because statistically they're not good. They got their first victory, with Brooklyn Nets when he was out. And if they could beat a team like the Celtics, which they won't, that'll be really good confidence for the team.
Spence, and what should be probably the game of the night, in my opinion, as the over-under is set at 240. And hopefully the dainty Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant are back in the lineup after having to sit out after only 3 games. They take on the Nets, who are 3-0, or the Atlanta Hawks, who are 3-0. Brooklyn's going to be a 6.5-point favorite. I'm calling it right now. Outright upset. The Atlanta Hawks get the victory. Trae Young goes off. I'm so aggravated about the superstar sitting last night. Of course, I made the bet too early. But after 3 games, come on. I hope the Atlanta Hawks beat their ass tomorrow. And I think they're that talented where they maybe can. Trae Young, a superstar. Brooklyn's going to be a 6.5-point favorite. Do you think the Hawks get the upset win tomorrow night against the Nets, Spence?
Yeah, I mean, the Nets start off with this awesome just start of the season, beating 2 good teams. And then they start resting guys. And I don't know. I'm still very high in the Nets, but the Hawks are coming out and pretty good right now. I mean, we all know how talented they're going to be offensively. I don't think there's going to be an upset. As long as KD and Kyrie play, I see no reason the Nets lose this game. They're just not going to be able to keep up, I think, with the scoring. And I actually do like the defensive rotations that Brooklyn has because on paper, they don't actually have a lot of talent there when it comes to guys who you think are going to be able to stop the ball. But they play like a 3-2 zone from what I see for the most part. They're really good on switching. They're actually very tall and lengthy. We'll see if teams figure it out. I mean, I'd have to watch more games to see like where I think the weakness is. For the most part, I think for the first 15 games, as long as their 2 stars are playing, they're going to keep winning basketball games.
Spence, a home and home. Bucks take on the Heat in Miami tomorrow after a record-setting performance tonight. Will the Heat look for a little revenge? No line posted yet. I think the Bucks may have a repeat performance. Of course, they won't be as hot, but I think they win by double digits in the home and home. We'll see. It usually doesn't happen that way, but I don't think Jimmy Butler will be in the lineup for Miami. Next matchup, we'll have the Dallas Mavericks, 8-point home favorite against the Hornets. The Lakers will take on the Spurs. No line set there yet. If you can get it early, if the Lakers are a 6-point favorite or more, there is a possibility the Lakers may sit a guy or two. If that's the case, maybe a little bit on the Spurs, but I just don't know how good the Spurs are going to be this year. And then tomorrow night, Clippers on a back-to-back at home, taking on the Blazers. That should be a really good matchup. Blazers, Clippers. Don't know Kawhi Leonard's status of that game yet. Spence, I know we wanted to get to it, but let's save it for Thursday's show, some more NBA discussion, and we'll get into how great the NBA is sitting right now, some of the talent in the league, and who our top 10 list of NBA players are moving forward. And then we'll finish 2020 strong on Thursday. So thanks to Brian Bravo, Chris Wynn, everyone chiming in on the chat. We will be back with a New Year's Eve edition of the Rest Up on Thursday. Same time, same channel, 9 o'clock Pacific time. We'll come to you live. So tune in. If you miss any part of the show, please go to any of the podcasting platforms, Spotify, Audio Boom, Google Podcasts, iTunes, search Landry Football Conference Call. The Rest Up will be underneath there. And, of course, follow Spencer on Twitter at Spencer the Wiz. Follow myself on Twitter at Brad the Believer. And, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Brad the Believer. We post all the shows there. And, Guys, I hope everyone had a great Christmas. And 2021 is right around the corner, and we'll be getting into some of the discussion on the next show about all the great things the Rest Stop has in store, as we're going to bring you some bigger and better content and action coming into the new year. So everyone, have a great day tomorrow. We'll see you back here live on Christmas Eve. Have a great night, everyone.